when women start to get a little bit into witchcraft and just a little, kind of like getting their feet wet, they always want to know, like, where do they go next? or what their most important steps in the beginning should be. And if we go back to wild rhythm, this is always my go-to advice, is, look at your life, as your entire life, as if, from birth until death. So like go all the way to the end and look at it as if it were an epic novel, right? And ask yourself, what is the title of that epic novel of your life? And I know that that's an overwhelming question. So I always say that it's okay to be vague. It doesn't have to be a really specific title that it completely tells the end of the story and everything. So title that novel first, and then come up with, say, 20 or so chapters in that book, in that epic novel, and title those chapters if you can, and pretend that you have lived up to chapter 12, right? So, those first 12 chapters of your life have happened. So title those chapters, and then you can title the future ones also. But then in those first 12 chapters that you've lived, look for the moments where you really felt like you were the most you could possibly be, right? Those moments where, so I usually call them Bhava moments. Bhava means feeling mind. So these moments when your body, mind, and spirit will really yoke together in the same action. And take an inventory of those. So what happens is, usually during childhood, you tend to have a lot, and then there'll be whole chapters, sometimes during your teenage years and 20s, where you really feel botherless, like you don't have a lot of those moments, and that's fine. But take an inventory, the first 12 chapters that you've lived already, your bhava moments when you really felt like you were living your truth, right? And then look for the patterns, right? Because we tend to think of these moments where we really felt like we were the most us we could be. We think of them as like common shared experiences for some reason. I don't know why we file them away in our head like that, but we do. And they are very, very telling as to why you are so unique and your purpose and what you are here to do. So look for the patterns between all of those bhava moments, those times when you really felt connected and integrated. So common ones are like nature, or solitude, or community, or sex, or creating something, right? Looking at sunsets or campfires or something like that. So take an inventory, or swimming. Take an inventory of all of these different bhava moments. Look for the patterns, right? And then can you write the 13th chapter, so that next chapter that hasn't started yet, right? And since we're on the cusp of autumn, say that it starts on the equinox, right? So it's September 22nd this year. Say that your 13th chapter starts then, and how can you really envision that next chapter to include as many of those patterns as possible, right? And then if those patterns have a lot of nature in them, a lot of sense of the ethereal or magic, then maybe you really are being called to the craft, right? And then what you do is you look for the elements that show up a lot. So if there's fire and sunrise and all of that, then maybe, the fire element is something that you work with. If there's a lot of earth and you're like making mud pies or, playing with ferns or whatever in a lot of your bhava moments, then, maybe earth magic or plant medicine is more for you, right? But those moments where you really felt authentically, you are very telling as to what direction you should go in your craft, but really in life, right? So if we look at our spiritual practice and our witchcraft is really kind of this microcosm of the way we live the rest of our life, rather than this kind of isolated layer, then those bhava moments are telling for both your craft, but then also, your greater work, your sacred work, and make the next chapter have as much of that in it as possible.
Wow, that was a really powerful exercise. I'm so grateful that you shared it with us.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you.